Crazy woman has been stalking my family for 12 years claiming I abandoned my son. The timeline doesn't even add up because I was living in a different state when she says we had a relationship, but she won't accept the truth no matter what evidence I show her. Last Tuesday changed everything. I was sitting in the school auditorium watching my 8-year-old daughter Maeve perform in her class play when a woman I barely recognized approached my wife Clara and me during intermission. The woman had a boy with her who looked around 12 years old. She walked straight up to us and announced loudly enough for nearby parents to hear that I was the father of her son and that it was time I took responsibility. I had no idea who this woman was at first. My wife grabbed my arm. Other parents turned to stare. The woman kept talking, saying her name was Ayla Martinez and that I had abandoned her and my son Isaac 12 years ago. She demanded I acknowledge Isaac as my child and start paying support immediately. I stood up and told her she had the wrong person. I had never seen her before in my life. She pulled out her phone and started showing pictures of Isaac to anyone who would look, pointing out features she claimed he shared with me. She said she had been trying to find me for years and finally tracked me down through social media. The school security guard came over because of the commotion. Ayla kept insisting I was lying and that I knew exactly who she was. She said we had worked together at Morrison Industries 12 years ago and that I had gotten her pregnant during our brief relationship before disappearing. This is where the timeline falls apart completely. 12 years ago, I was working as a quality control supervisor at Henderson Manufacturing, not Morrison Industries. I had never heard of Morrison Industries until that moment. More importantly, 12 years ago I was living in Portland with my then girlfriend Monica while Clara and I were on a break in our relationship. I told Ayla she had the wrong person and asked her to leave us alone. She refused and said she would prove I was Isaac's father. She started taking pictures of me with her phone, saying she would show them to Isaac later. My wife asked the security guard to escort Ayla away from us. The whole incident ruined Maeve's play. We left early because other parents kept staring and whispering. Maeve asked why the lady was yelling at Daddy. Clara spent the car ride home asking me if I knew Ayla from somewhere. I told her the truth, I had never seen this woman before in my life. But Ayla wasn't done. The next morning she showed up at my workplace. I work as a shift supervisor at Consolidated Packaging. She somehow got past the front desk and came straight to my office. She had Isaac with her this time, a thin kid with dark hair who looked uncomfortable. Ayla sat down across from my desk like she owned the place. She said she had spent all night thinking about our conversation and realized I might genuinely not remember her. She claimed we had met at a company mixer between Morrison Industries and Henderson Manufacturing in the summer of 2012. According to her story, we hit it off immediately and started seeing each other secretly for about 2 months. I told her again that I had never worked for Henderson Manufacturing. She looked confused and said she was sure that's where I worked. I showed her my employee ID badge from Consolidated Packaging, where I've worked for the past 15 years. She insisted I must have changed jobs. Then she said something that made everything click. She mentioned that I had told her I lived in an apartment complex called Riverside Gardens. That's where I lived when I was 24, but that was 14 years ago, not 12. I lived there for 2 years before moving in with my ex-girlfriend Kelly. I realized Ayla had mixed up her timeline and possibly mixed up me with someone else entirely. I told her she needed to leave and take Isaac with her. She said she would get a paternity test to prove Isaac was mine. I told her to go ahead because the test would show I wasn't the father. Ayla left but came back 3 days later with papers. She said she had filed a petition with family court to establish paternity and order genetic testing. She handed me official-looking documents that listed me as the alleged father of Isaac Martinez, born in March 2012. I took the papers to a lawyer named David Chen. He looked them over and said they appeared legitimate. He explained that if Ayla had listed me as the father on her petition, I would need to respond within 30 days or the court might enter a default judgment. Even though I knew I wasn't Isaac's father, I had to take this seriously. David filed a response denying paternity and requesting genetic testing. He said the process would take several weeks because we had to wait for a court date. In the meantime, Ayla kept showing up places where she knew I would be. She appeared at the grocery store where Clara and I shop every Saturday. She brought Isaac with her and followed us through the aisles, talking loudly about how Isaac needed his father in his life. Other shoppers stared as she pointed at me and told Isaac to look at his daddy. 2 weeks later, she showed up at Maeve's soccer game. She sat in the bleachers near us and spent the entire game telling other parents that I was her son's father but refused to acknowledge him. She said I was a deadbeat dad who had abandoned my responsibilities. Clara started avoiding public places where Ayla might appear. She said people were beginning to recognize us from Ayla's confrontations. Maeve asked why the lady with the sad boy kept following us around. David scheduled the genetic testing through the court system. We had to go to a clinic downtown where they collected saliva samples from me, Ayla, and Isaac. The technician said results would be available in 10 to 14 business days. During the wait, Ayla's behavior escalated. She created social media accounts and started posting about me publicly. She shared photos she had taken of me at various locations along with long posts about fathers who abandon their children. She tagged my employer and several local community groups. My supervisor at work called me into his office to discuss the situation. He said someone had been calling the company asking questions about my employment history and character. He wanted to know if there was anything I needed to tell him about my personal life. I explained the situation and showed him the court documents. He said the company would support me but asked me to keep them updated on any developments that might affect my work. Ayla also started contacting Clara's workplace. Clara works as a medical assistant at a family practice clinic. Ayla called multiple times claiming to be a patient and asking to speak with Clara about a family emergency. When the receptionist finally put her through, Ayla told Clara that I had abandoned 2 families and that she should leave me before I did the same to her. Clara came home upset and asked me to be completely honest about my past relationships. I went through my entire dating history year by year, including the brief period when Clara and I had broken up 12 years ago. I showed her old photographs, text messages, and emails to prove where I was and who I was with during the time Ayla claimed we were together. The court date for the genetic testing results was set for a Thursday morning. David said we would receive the results at the hearing and the judge would make a determination based on the evidence. On Wednesday night, Ayla showed up at our house. She rang the doorbell repeatedly until I answered. She was alone this time, without Isaac. She said she wanted to talk privately before the court hearing. She asked if we could work something out without involving the courts. She said Isaac had been asking more questions about his father and deserved to have a dad in his life. She offered to drop the paternity case if I would agree to spend time with Isaac occasionally and help with some of his expenses. I told her I wasn't Isaac's father and wouldn't pretend to be. She said the genetic test might be wrong and that laboratory errors happen all the time. She claimed she was certain I was the only possible father because she hadn't been with anyone else during the time period in question. Clara came to the door and told Ayla to leave our property. Ayla said she understood why Clara would be upset but that this situation wasn't going away. She said Isaac had a right to know his father regardless of what any test showed. After Ayla left, Clara and I sat at the kitchen table going through everything again. She asked me if there was any possibility, however remote, that I could be Isaac's father. I told her there was absolutely no way because I had never been intimate with Ayla or anyone else during the time frame she claimed. Clara asked what we would do if the test somehow came back positive due to a laboratory error or contamination. I said we would request a second test from a different laboratory. She asked what we would do if Ayla continued harassing us even after a negative result. I called David and asked about our legal options if Ayla refused to accept the test results. He said we could pursue a restraining order if her behavior continued to constitute harassment. He said documenting her actions with photographs, recordings, and witness statements would strengthen our case. The next morning, we went to family court for the results hearing. Ayla arrived with Isaac and an older woman she introduced as her mother, Carmen Martinez. They sat on the opposite side of the courtroom from Clara and me. Judge Williams called our case and asked both parties to approach the bench. She had the genetic testing results in front of her and read them aloud. The test showed with 99.99% certainty that I was not the biological father of Isaac Martinez. Ayla stared at the judge like she hadn't heard correctly. She asked if there could be a mistake with the test. The judge explained that genetic testing is extremely accurate and that the results were conclusive. Ayla turned to look at me with an expression I couldn't read. She asked the judge if we could order a second test from a different laboratory. Judge Williams said that wasn't necessary given the accuracy of genetic testing but that Ayla was free to pursue additional testing at her own expense if she chose. The judge dismissed the paternity case and ordered that I had no legal obligations to Isaac or Ayla. She also issued a warning to Ayla about filing false claims and advised her to seek counseling to help Isaac understand the situation. After the hearing, Ayla approached me in the hallway outside the courtroom. She said she still believed I was Isaac's father despite what the test showed. She said she would find a way to prove it. Carmen, her mother, took her by the arm and led her away while apologizing to Clara and me for the trouble. David said the case was closed but advised me to keep records of any further contact from Ayla. He said her behavior during the proceedings suggested she might not accept the results and could continue pursuing the matter through other means. That evening, Clara and I explained to Maeve that the lady who had been bothering us wouldn't be coming around anymore. Maeve asked if the boy with the lady was sad that I wasn't his daddy. Clara told her that the boy's real daddy was someone else and that his mommy had made a mistake. I thought the situation was over, but I was wrong. Update 1, Ayla hasn't given up. The genetic test results didn't stop her from continuing to contact me and my family. In fact, her behavior has gotten worse since the court hearing. 2 days after the hearing, she created a new social media account and started posting again. This time she shared screenshots of the court documents along with her own interpretation of what happened. She claimed the genetic test was falsified because I had connections at the testing laboratory. She said she was going to expose the corruption in the family court system. She tagged dozens of people in her posts, including my coworkers, neighbors, and members of Maeve's school community. She shared photos of me that she had taken without my permission and wrote long captions about fathers who use money and influence to avoid their responsibilities. My phone started ringing with calls from people asking about the situation. My neighbor Janet called to ask if the woman posting about me online was telling the truth. Maeve's soccer coach called Clara to ask if there was a family situation the team should know about. I contacted David about Isla's social media activity. He said her posts could constitute defamation since she was making false claims about me after a court had determined I wasn't Isaac's father. He said we could send her a cease and desist letter demanding she remove the posts and stop making public statements about me. Before we could send the letter, Ayla escalated her campaign. She printed flyers with my photo and information about her paternity claims. She posted them around town, including at the community center, library, and several local businesses. The flyers had a headline that read "Deadbeat Dad Refuses to Support His Son" with my name and workplace listed below. They included Isla's phone number and asked people to call her with any information about other children I might have abandoned. My supervisor at Consolidated Packaging called me into his office again. He said customers had been asking about the flyers and that the company was receiving phone calls about my character. He said upper management was concerned about the negative publicity affecting our business relationships. I showed him the court documents proving I wasn't Isaac's father and David's legal analysis of the situation. My supervisor said the company would continue to support me but asked me to resolve the matter quickly to minimize further disruption. Clara's workplace was also affected. Patients at the medical clinic where she worked started asking her about the flyers. Her supervisor asked her to take a few days off while they figured out how to handle the situation professionally. David sent Ayla a formal cease and desist letter demanding she remove all social media posts, stop distributing flyers, and cease making public statements about me. The letter explained that her claims had been legally disproven and that continued harassment could result in criminal charges. Ayla responded by creating another social media account and posting the cease and desist letter. She claimed it proved I was using legal intimidation to silence her. She said she wouldn't stop fighting for Isaac's rights regardless of what lawyers threatened her with. She also started showing up at Maeve's school again. The principal called to inform us that Ayla had been seen on school property during pickup time. She had approached other parents and shown them photos of Isaac while asking if they thought he looked like me. The school implemented additional security measures and instructed staff to call the police if Ayla appeared on campus again. They also sent a letter to all parents explaining that unauthorized individuals had been soliciting personal information about families and asking everyone to report suspicious activity. Maeve started asking why she couldn't walk home from school anymore. Clara had to explain that a confused lady was bothering people and that we needed to be extra careful for a while. Maeve asked if the confused lady was dangerous. Clara said she wasn't dangerous but that adults sometimes needed help understanding when to leave people alone. 2 weeks after the cease and desist letter, Ayla's behavior changed in a disturbing way. Instead of approaching us directly, she started following us from a distance. Clara noticed a car behind us during several trips to the grocery store and other errands. I confirmed it was Ayla when I saw her car parked across the street from our house one evening. She sat in the vehicle for over an hour, just watching our house. When I went outside to confront her, she drove away. The following week, she began following Maeve's school bus. The bus driver called the transportation office to report a vehicle that had been trailing the bus for several days. The transportation supervisor contacted the police and our school district. Clara and I decided we needed to document Ayla's stalking behavior more systematically. We started taking photographs whenever we spotted her car and keeping a log of times and locations where we encountered her. David advised us to file a police report about the stalking. He said Ayla's pattern of following us and watching our house constituted criminal behavior that went beyond the civil harassment we had been dealing with. We went to the police station and filed a formal complaint against Ayla Martinez for stalking and harassment. The officer who took our report said they would investigate and potentially file charges depending on what evidence we could provide. The officer explained that stalking cases can be difficult to prosecute without clear evidence of threats or aggressive behavior. He said Ayla's social media posts and flyer distribution, combined with her following us around town, might be enough to support charges. 3 days after filing the police report, Ayla made a mistake that gave us the evidence we needed. She approached Clara in the parking lot of Maeve's school during a parent-teacher conference night. Clara was walking to her car when Ayla appeared from behind another vehicle. Ayla grabbed Clara's arm and demanded to know why we were trying to destroy her son's life. She said Isaac had been asking more questions about his father and deserved answers. Clara pulled away and told Ayla not to touch her. Ayla said she would continue fighting until Isaac got the father he deserved, even if it meant exposing my lies to everyone in town. She said she knew I was Isaac's father regardless of what any test showed. Other parents in the parking lot witnessed the confrontation. One of them, a man named Robert Chen, intervened and told Ayla to leave Clara alone. Ayla turned on him and accused him of being part of a conspiracy to protect me. Robert took out his phone and started recording Ayla's behavior. She noticed the camera and became more agitated, raising her voice and making accusations against multiple people in the parking lot. She claimed everyone was working together to keep Isaac from knowing his real father. School security arrived and asked Ayla to leave the property. She refused and said she had a right to speak with other parents about community safety issues. The security guard called the police while Ayla continued talking to anyone who would listen. 2 police officers arrived and recognized Ayla's name from our stalking complaint. They asked her to come with them for questioning about her recent activities. Ayla initially refused but eventually agreed to speak with them privately. Clara and I gave statements to the officers about the parking lot incident and provided them with our documentation of Ayla's stalking behavior. Robert Chen also gave a statement and shared the video he had recorded of Ayla's confrontation with Clara. The officers said they had enough evidence to charge Ayla with stalking and harassment. They said she would be arrested if she continued to contact us or appear at places where she knew we would be. Ayla was released that night but received a formal warning about her behavior. The police told her that any further contact with our family would result in immediate arrest and criminal charges. For a few days, everything was quiet. Ayla's social media accounts went silent and we didn't see her car around town. I thought maybe the police warning had finally gotten through to her. Then Isaac showed up at our front door by himself. Update 2, Isaac appeared at our house on a Saturday afternoon while Clara and Maeve were at soccer practice. I was in the garage working on some home repairs when I heard the doorbell ring. When I opened the front door, I found Isaac standing on our porch with a backpack and a nervous expression. He said his name was Isaac Martinez and asked if I remembered him from the court hearing. He looked thinner than I remembered and his clothes seemed too big for him. He asked if he could come inside to talk. I told him he needed to go home and that his mother shouldn't have sent him to our house. He said his mother didn't know where he was. He had taken 2 buses to get to our neighborhood and had been walking around for an hour trying to find the right house. Isaac said he wanted to ask me some questions about the genetic test. He said his mother told him the test was wrong and that I was definitely his father. He wanted to know if I thought there was any chance the test made a mistake. I sat down on the front steps and explained that genetic tests are extremely accurate. I told him the test proved I wasn't his biological father and that his real father was someone else. Isaac asked if I was disappointed that I wasn't his dad. The question caught me off guard. I told him I wasn't disappointed because I had never expected to be his father. I explained that his mother had confused me with someone else and that the whole situation had been a misunderstanding. Isaac asked if I would have wanted to be his father if the test had been positive. I didn't know how to answer that question. I told him that being a parent is a big responsibility and that his real father, whoever that person was, would be lucky to have him as a son. He asked why his mother was so sure I was his father if I really wasn't. I explained that sometimes people convince themselves of things they want to believe, even when those things aren't true. I said his mother loved him and wanted him to have a father, which made her believe I was that person. Isaac said his mother had been acting strange since the court hearing. She spent most of her time on the computer writing posts about me and other people she claimed were helping me hide the truth. She had stopped cooking regular meals and forgot to pick him up from school twice. He said his grandmother Carmen was worried about his mother's behavior and had been staying with them more often. His grandmother thought his mother needed professional help but his mother refused to see a doctor or counselor. I asked Isaac how he had found our address. He said his mother had driven past our house several times and he had memorized the street name and house number. He had used his school computer to look up public transportation routes to our neighborhood. I called David to ask what I should do about Isaac being at our house. David said I needed to contact Ayla immediately and arrange for her to pick up Isaac. He said harboring someone else's child, even briefly, could create legal complications. I asked Isaac for his mother's phone number. He said she had been ignoring phone calls from people she didn't recognize, but he gave me the number anyway. When I called, Ayla answered on the first ring and started yelling before I could explain why I was calling. She accused me of kidnapping her son and said she was calling the police. I interrupted her and explained that Isaac had come to our house on his own and that I was trying to arrange for her to pick him up. She said Isaac would never go to my house without being forced. I handed the phone to Isaac so he could explain the situation to his mother. I could hear Ayla yelling through the phone even though Isaac held it away from his ear. Isaac told her he had taken the bus to our house because he wanted to ask me some questions. Ayla demanded to speak with me again. She said I had manipulated Isaac into coming to our house as part of a plan to confuse him about his paternity. She said she would be there in 20 minutes to get her son and that I better not try to influence him against her. While we waited for Ayla to arrive, Isaac asked more questions about the court hearing and genetic testing. He wanted to know if there was any chance his mother was right about the test being wrong. I explained that genetic tests compare DNA samples and that mistakes are extremely rare. Isaac said he had been hoping I was his father because his mother had described me as successful and responsible. He said he didn't know anything about his real father except that his mother refused to talk about him. He asked if I thought his real father might want to meet him someday. I told him that most people would be happy to know they had a son like him. I said his real father probably didn't even know Isaac existed and would want to be part of his life if he found out. Isaac asked how he could find his real father if his mother wouldn't help him. I suggested he talk to his grandmother Carmen about his family history. I said older family members sometimes knew more about past relationships and might be able to provide helpful information when he was older and ready to search for his biological father. Ayla arrived exactly 20 minutes later with Carmen. They both got out of Ayla's car and walked quickly toward our front porch. Ayla looked angry while Carmen appeared embarrassed and worried. Ayla immediately started accusing me of luring Isaac to our house with promises or threats. She said Isaac would never have come here on his own and that I must have contacted him somehow. Isaac tried to explain that he had come voluntarily, but Ayla told him to stop talking. Carmen apologized for the disruption and said they would take Isaac home immediately. She asked me if Isaac had said or done anything inappropriate while he was at our house. I told her he had been polite and well-behaved throughout his visit. Ayla said she didn't believe Isaac had come to our house alone and accused me of staging the entire encounter. She said she was going to file a police report about me attempting to kidnap her son. Carmen put her hand on Ayla's arm and told her to calm down. Isaac said goodbye to me and thanked me for answering his questions. He said he understood now that I wasn't his father but that he appreciated me being honest with him about the genetic test. Ayla grabbed his arm and pulled him toward their car. Before they left, Carmen approached me privately and apologized again for the situation. She said Ayla's behavior had been getting worse since the court hearing and that the family was trying to get her professional help. She said they were considering having Isaac stay with relatives until Ayla could get the support she needed. Carmen asked if I would be willing to sign a statement saying that Isaac had come to our house voluntarily and that nothing inappropriate had happened during his visit. She said it might help if Ayla tried to file false charges against me. I agreed to write the statement and had David review it before signing. The statement described exactly what had happened during Isaac's visit and confirmed that he had come to our house on his own initiative to ask questions about the paternity case. 2 days later, the police called to inform me that Ayla had indeed filed a complaint alleging that I had lured Isaac to our house for inappropriate purposes. They said they had investigated the complaint and found no evidence to support Ayla's allegations. The investigating officer said Ayla's complaint appeared to be part of a pattern of false accusations she had been making since the paternity case ended. He said they had spoken with Carmen and Isaac, both of whom confirmed that Isaac had gone to our house voluntarily. The officer said they had also reviewed Ayla's social media activity and found posts where she had threatened to find new ways to prove I was Isaac's father. He said her behavior suggested she was having difficulty accepting the court's decision and might benefit from mental health support. A week after Isaac's visit, Carmen called me directly. She said she wanted to update me on their family situation and ask for my help with a legal matter. She explained that she and other family members were pursuing guardianship of Isaac because Ayla's mental health had deteriorated significantly. Carmen said Ayla had been staying awake for days at a time researching genetic testing procedures and conspiracy theories about laboratory fraud. She had stopped maintaining basic hygiene and was surviving on energy drinks and snack foods. Ayla had also been calling Isaac's school repeatedly to demand they investigate teachers and staff members she suspected of working with me to hide information about Isaac's paternity. The school had asked Carmen to consider alternative arrangements for Isaac's education. Carmen said the family had consulted with a lawyer about emergency guardianship proceedings. They needed character references for their petition and wondered if I would be willing to provide a statement about my interactions with Isaac and Ayla. I discussed the request with David, who said providing a factual statement about Ayla's behavior could be appropriate given the circumstances. He helped me prepare a statement describing Ayla's harassment, stalking, and false accusations without making any judgments about her mental health or fitness as a parent. The guardianship hearing was scheduled for the following month. Carmen said Ayla was refusing to participate in the proceedings and had accused the entire extended family of conspiring against her. She had moved out of her apartment and was staying in her car while continuing to post about me on social media. Carmen asked if there was anything I could do to help Isaac understand that the adults in his life were trying to protect him, not hurt him. She said Isaac had been blaming himself for the family conflict and thought he had caused problems by visiting our house. I suggested that Carmen ask Isaac's school counselor to meet with him about the family situation. I said professional counselors were better equipped than I was to help children process complicated family dynamics and emotional trauma. Carmen thanked me for all the help I had provided despite the difficult circumstances. She said the family was grateful for my patience with Ayla's behavior and my kindness toward Isaac during his visit to our house. The guardianship hearing took place 3 weeks later. Carmen was awarded temporary custody of Isaac while Ayla was ordered to undergo a psychological evaluation and participate in counseling before any visitation rights could be restored. Ayla failed to appear at the hearing and hasn't been seen by her family since. Her social media accounts went silent immediately after the court date. Carmen said they filed a missing person report, but the police haven't located Ayla yet. Isaac started at a new school in Carmen's district and began seeing a counselor who specializes in helping children adjust to family changes. Carmen said he was doing better academically and socially now that his living situation was more stable. But our problems with Ayla weren't over yet. Update 3, Ayla resurfaced last month, and her return created new problems that finally forced us to take drastic action to protect our family. Carmen had been calling us every few weeks to provide updates on Isaac and let us know that Ayla was still missing. Isaac had been doing well in his new school and seemed to be adjusting to living with his grandmother. The counseling sessions were helping him process the family situation and he had stopped blaming himself for the conflict. In early February, Carmen called with concerning news. Ayla had contacted Isaac directly through a social media account she had created using a fake name. She had been sending him messages claiming that I was holding his real father hostage and that she was working with law enforcement to rescue him. The messages became increasingly bizarre over several days. Ayla told Isaac that I was part of a criminal organization that specialized in separating children from their biological fathers. She claimed that genetic testing laboratories were owned by this organization and that they falsified results to protect their clients. Carmen showed the messages to Isaac's counselor, who recommended immediately blocking all of Ayla's social media accounts and changing Isaac's privacy settings. The counselor said Ayla's messages showed signs of serious mental health deterioration and could be psychologically harmful to Isaac. Carmen also contacted the police about Ayla's communications with Isaac. The officers said they would investigate the messages as a possible violation of the custody order, but they needed to locate Ayla first to take any enforcement action. 2 weeks later, Ayla found us again. Clara was dropping Maeve off at school when she noticed a woman sitting in a car across the street from the school entrance. The woman was taking photographs of parents and children as they arrived for the day. Clara didn't recognize the car or the woman at first, but something about the situation seemed wrong. She parked and walked closer to get a better look. The woman in the car was Ayla, but she looked dramatically different than she had during the court proceedings. Ayla had lost a significant amount of weight and her hair appeared unwashed and unkempt. She was wearing oversized clothing and had dark circles under her eyes. When she noticed Clara approaching, she started her car and drove away quickly. Clara immediately called the school to report the incident. The principal said they would increase security monitoring during arrival and dismissal times. Clara also called the police to report that Ayla was back in the area and potentially stalking families at Maeve School. The police said they would patrol the school area more frequently, but they reminded Clara that sitting in a car on a public street wasn't necessarily illegal unless Ayla made direct contact with students or families. 3 days later, Ayla escalated her behavior in a way that crossed clear legal boundaries. She approached Maeve directly in the school playground during recess and told her that I wasn't her real father either. According to Maeve's teacher, Ayla had somehow gotten onto the school grounds without being noticed by security. She approached Maeve while she was playing with friends and started asking questions about our family life at home. Ayla told Maeve that many children had fathers who lied to them about their identity and that genetic tests could prove who their real parents were. She asked Maeve if she wanted to know the truth about her parentage and offered to help her get tested. Maeve became frightened and ran to her teacher. The teacher immediately escorted Ayla off school property while other staff members called the police and contacted Clara and me at work. When the police arrived, Ayla was sitting in her car in the school parking lot. She had a notebook filled with observations about students, parents, and school staff members. The notebook included license plate numbers, physical descriptions, and detailed schedules of when various families arrived and departed. The police arrested Ayla for trespassing on school property and questioned her about her interactions with Maeve. Ayla told them she was conducting an investigation into paternity fraud and that Maeve had a right to know if I was really her biological father. Ayla's arrest revealed the extent of her surveillance activities over the past several weeks. Her car contained additional notebooks with information about our daily routines, Clara's work schedule, and Maeve's extracurricular activities. She had been following us systematically while documenting everything she observed. The police charged Ayla with stalking, harassment, and trespassing. Her bail was set high enough that she couldn't afford to pay it, so she remained in jail while awaiting trial. During Ayla's psychological evaluation for the court proceedings, she was diagnosed with a severe mental health condition that had been exacerbated by stress and isolation. The evaluating psychiatrist recommended long-term treatment in a residential facility. Carmen visited us after Ayla's arrest to apologize for everything our family had endured. She said the extended family had been trying to get Ayla professional help for months, but Ayla had refused all attempts at intervention. Carmen also brought news about Isaac. He had been doing well in school and had made several friends in his new neighborhood. The counseling sessions had helped him understand that Ayla's behavior was caused by illness, not by anything he had done wrong. Most importantly, Carmen had been working with a genealogy service to help Isaac learn more about his biological father's identity. They had identified several potential matches through DNA comparison databases and were beginning to reach out to those individuals. Isaac was excited about the possibility of finding his real father but also nervous about what that relationship might be like. Carmen said they were taking the process slowly and involving Isaac's counselor in all decisions about contact with potential biological relatives. Isla's trial took place in late March. She was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to 3 years in prison followed by mandatory mental health treatment. The judge also issued a permanent restraining order prohibiting any future contact with our family. As part of her sentencing, Ayla was required to pay restitution for our legal expenses and the cost of additional security measures at Maeve School. The judge said Isla's behavior had been a serious violation of our family's safety and privacy. Carmen was granted permanent custody of Isaac with the understanding that Ayla would have no visitation rights until she completed her prison sentence and demonstrated significant improvement in her mental health through professional treatment. We also learned during the trial that Ayla had been making similar paternity claims against 2 other men in different states. Investigators found evidence that she had been using social media to research potential targets and had developed elaborate false narratives about relationships that never existed. The prosecutor said Isla's case demonstrated how untreated mental illness could lead to criminal behavior that harmed multiple families. He recommended that the court system develop better procedures for identifying and addressing false paternity claims before they escalated to stalking and harassment. Our family has finally returned to a normal routine. Maeve goes to school without worrying about strangers approaching her. Clara and I can run errands without constantly checking for cars following us. The social media posts and flyers have been removed, and people have stopped asking us questions about the situation. Maeve still occasionally asks about the confused lady and the sad boy, but she seems to have processed the experience without lasting trauma. Her teacher says she's doing well academically and socially, with no signs that the incident affected her sense of security at school. Isaac sends us a card every few months through Carmen to let us know how he's doing. His most recent card included a photo from his school science fair and a note saying that he's thinking about becoming a forensic scientist when he grows up. Carmen also updates us when there's significant news about Isaac's search for his biological father. The genealogy work has narrowed down the possibilities to 3 men, and they're beginning the process of making contact to request genetic testing. As for Ayla, she remains in prison and has reportedly been participating in mental health treatment programs. Carmen says the family hopes she will eventually recover enough to have some kind of relationship with Isaac, but that decision will be up to Isaac when he's older. David says our case has been used as an example in legal seminars about false paternity claims and stalking behavior. He says other lawyers have contacted him for advice on similar cases, which suggests that Isla's behavior wasn't as unusual as we originally thought. The whole experience taught us how important it is to document everything when someone is harassing you and to involve law enforcement early rather than hoping the problem will resolve itself. We also learned that mental illness can cause people to create elaborate false realities that feel completely real to them, even when those realities have no basis in fact. Looking back, I realized that Ayla genuinely believed I was Isaac's father despite all evidence to the contrary. Her behavior wasn't calculated deception but rather the result of a serious psychological condition that distorted her perception of reality. That understanding doesn't excuse the harm she caused to our family, Isaac, and her own relatives, but it does help explain why logical arguments and legal proceedings weren't enough to stop her behavior. She needed professional medical intervention, not just court orders. The situation also highlighted how vulnerable children can become when adults around them are struggling with mental health issues. Isaac spent months believing I was his father who had abandoned him, which must have been incredibly painful and confusing for a young person to process. We're grateful that Isaac now has stable caregivers who are helping him heal from this experience and search for his real father in a healthy, age-appropriate way. Carmen has been an excellent guardian who prioritizes Isaac's well-being over adult conflicts and drama. Our family has moved forward from this experience stronger and more aware of how to protect ourselves from harassment. We've also developed a deeper appreciation for the importance of mental health resources and support systems for families in crisis. Maeve occasionally mentions that she hopes Isaac finds his real daddy someday and that his mommy gets the help she needs to feel better. Her innocent perspective reminds us that even difficult situations can be opportunities to teach children about compassion, truth, and the complexity of human behavior. The legal system worked as it should have in our case, but only after we provided extensive documentation and evidence of Isla's behavior. Other families dealing with similar situations should know that help is available, but they need to be persistent in seeking it. We keep Isla's case information on file in case she attempts to contact us again after her release from prison. David says the permanent restraining order will remain in effect indefinitely, and any violation would result in immediate arrest and additional charges. For now, we're focused on enjoying our normal life as a family of 3. The experience reminded us not to take simple pleasures like grocery shopping, school events, and weekend activities for granted. These ordinary moments feel precious when you've had to worry about being followed or confronted by someone who refuses to accept reality. Isaac deserves to grow up knowing his real father, and I hope the ongoing genealogy work will give him that opportunity. Every child should have accurate information about their biological parents and the chance to build those relationships if possible. As for Ayla, I hope she gets the treatment she needs and eventually finds peace. Mental illness is a serious condition that requires professional care, and I hope her family can maintain the support systems that will help her recovery when she's ready to accept help. Our story had a clear resolution because genetic testing provided definitive proof of the truth. Not every family facing false paternity claims or harassment will have such straightforward evidence, but the legal system does offer protections for people willing to document incidents and pursue appropriate remedies. The most important lesson from our experience is that you shouldn't ignore harassment or assume it will stop on its own. People who create false narratives about others can escalate their behavior in dangerous ways, especially when they're dealing with untreated mental health issues. We documented everything, consulted with lawyers early, involved law enforcement when appropriate, and protected our child from adult conflicts as much as possible. Those steps helped us navigate a difficult situation and ultimately achieve a resolution that protected everyone involved, including Ayla herself.